thank you to the team here today for presenting the budget in such a coherent way. We appreciate it. I just wanted to follow up on Mr. Takano's line of questions and just to give a shout out to Mr. Kaufman and the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee. We're going to be doing a regional hearing in New Hampshire on the 4th of March with the folks from White River Junction VA about the alternative remedies that they're using for to bring down the opiate prescriptions. And I think we'll be introducing legislation on best practices and moving that across the VA. And my hope would be that the VA, frankly, can be a leader nationally in bringing a bend in the curve on this opiate crisis. One of the things that we've learned in New Hampshire is that four out of 5 of our heroin addicts, where we've been particularly hard hit, 400 deaths last year, started on prescription medications, so we're really focused on that generally. But also 4 out of 5 have co-occurring mental health disorders. And so my questions, along with Congressman O'Rourke, are how we can bring more treatment, mental health treatment in the VA to the rural areas. And maybe we could consider legislation, not just for physicians, but for therapists to encourage them to come to rural areas by alleviating their school debt. So that's one issue. The other issue, just focusing in on these evidence-based alternative therapies, I know that one of the problems we have, and this goes to actually from the Affordable Care Act, using pain as a fifth vital sign and as an indicator of quality. Again, our bipartisan task force is working across the aisle. I'm working with Representative Mooney from West Virginia on this. Is there anything in the VA where you're still using pain management as an indicator of quality that might be encouraging prescribers to use too much opiates? And can we help to turn that around? And would spreading these best practices help? And I'll end there.
Let me deal with the rural area medical infrastructure first. We had an interagency task force meeting on rural poverty, and the president was there. Sylvia Burwell, who's Secretary of HHS, Tom Vilsack, Secretary of Agriculture, and we had a long discussion about this medical infrastructure. I really do think there's a big opportunity to improve the medical infrastructure in rural areas. I know as a former CEO, when I would decide to put a plant somewhere, you look for infrastructure, you look for roads, you look for electricity, you look for water, you also look for medical care. And so we had a discussion about this, and many of the ideas that we've talked about, I think, are actionable for us, because VA trains 70% of the doctors in the country, so we need the residency slots. Then we need to work with the schools to create the residency training, because obviously it's difficult to create that kind of training program and frequency in a rural area given its location. So this is a ripe area for us to work together, I think, to really help our country. Ask David on the opioids.
Yeah, Congresswoman, I appreciate you bringing this attention again on this issue of opioid misuse and what we can do. VA has already begun to address this, but it has a lot more to do. As I said, we have 16,000 fewer veterans today taking opioids. We are using routine urine tox screens to identify people who are taking multiple drugs, because you're correct about the comorbidities of mental illness. We have started what's called academic detailing, which means that rather than going and talking to doctors about how to use drugs like the pharmaceutical industry, we actually are trying to teach them about the appropriate use of drugs and how they can avoid and use alternatives to opioids. So we do see VA as a national leader in this. We do think we need to do more. We are focused on this. We're looking forward to that hearing and seeing what else we can do.
Well, and just quickly, I'm the co-chair of a bipartisan task force on ending the heroin epidemic, and we would love to work with you, maybe some kind of a national panel, symposium on how we can use the lessons from the VA to help civilian side prescribing habits. So thank you very much. I yield back.